Now, as far as the drugs are concerned, antiviral drugs are concerned, which antiviral drug we are supposed to use in this particular indications? One of the antiviral drug is favipiravir, and I tell you this is broad spectrum antiviral drug. Because of this drug there is a rapid reduction in the viral load, within 4 days it can be happening. It provides faster symptomatic and radiological improvement. Indication of this particular drug is the patient should have mild to moderate illness. It should not be used in the severe illness. There is no place of this particular drug in the severe illness. The patients whose comorbid conditions are having, like say diabetes mellitus or heart disease, that is there, again this drug can be used. The dose, very important. Wrong practices are going on and should not happen. Right? It's available in the 200 milligram tablet or say 400 milligram tablet. When it is 200 milligram tablet, that is there, 9 tablets, looks a big dose, big tablet, big number of tablets, but then 9 tablets are to be given twice a day on day 1. That means 1800 milligram is to be given twice a day on day 1, and then followed by 200 milligram tablet, that is 4 tablets are to be given, 800 milligram is to be given twice a day for next 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days, as minimum as 5 days, as maximum as 7 days. Sometimes it can be extended even for 10 days also, based on the clinical response that is there. As far as contraindications of these drugs are concerned, during pregnancy and lactating mothers, we are not supposed to use it. When the patient has some serious renal damage that is there, hepatic impairment that is there, prolonged QT interval is there, history of gout is there, the patient those who are on invasive ventilation, the patient those are on non-invasive ventilation, this drug should not be used. The patients who are requiring vasopressors for the blood pressure control, the patients whose ejection fraction, cardiac ejection fraction is below 30%, eGFR is less than 30 ml per minute, or those who are on renal replacement therapy, like say hemodialysis therapy is there, this drug should not be used in this particular individuals. Otherwise, I tell you, this is important drug in a patient who has mild to moderate disease. One thing that should be kept in mind, this drug can give rise to increase in the uric acid, and sometimes the patient they start complaining about the arthralgia and knee pain or joint pain, they may be complaining. There might be slight rise in the AGPT and AGUT. Can be a diarrhea that can be there with this drug, and then the question mark that is going to be there, whether this diarrhea is there because of the COVID itself or whether this diarrhea is there because of the favipiravir. So keep this thing in particular thing in the mind. As far as the drug interaction are concerned, this drug should not be given with one of the anti-diabetic, because the diabetes is very common comorbidity in this condition. I would like to highlight the repaglinide. When the patients are on, this drug should not be given, because the repaglinide levels are going to go high and the patients may experience a repeated hypoglycemia. So as far as this favipiravir is there, the concept is clear. As far as the another drug, that is remdesivir is concerned, remdesivir nowadays is going to be very important drug. I like to call it as important drug, not very important drug. This is not a magical bullet that is there with us. Does not mean that it is magic and the drug is given and the patients are going to survive. A wrong notion that is there, wrong concepts are there amongst the treating physicians, also treating doctors, and among the population also, that the remdesivir agar nahi diya gaya to patient is not going to survive. It is not like this. Remdesivir is going to be useful in a limited number of cases. Is not to be used in patients with asymptomatic individuals. Is not to be used in patients with mild illness, not at all. There is no place of this particular drug in mild illness. Only place of this drug that is there is in a moderate illness, and in a moderate illness, that too when the patient is requiring oxygen therapy. So the patients are requiring oxygen, and the moderate illness that is there are really the candidates. And I tell you, if you take 100 cases, how many patients are there with the asymptomatic and mild illness? Almost 80% are there where this drug is not used. That means in 80% of patients this drug is not used. There is no benefit in this particular patient, or not at all recommended in this particular. This drug is not going to be very useful when the patient is already in a critical illness, like say multiple organ dysfunction syndrome that is there. How many patients are there like this? 5% patients. So on one side 80% patients are asymptomatic having mild disease where the drug is not recommended. This drug is not going to be useful when it is very critical disease that is there in a patient with MODS. How many patients are remaining? 10 to 12% of the individuals which really are remaining where they are having a moderate illness, but the moderate illness category also where they are requiring oxygen therapy, this drug is going to be the important. Again, important thing I would like to highlight, This drug is to be given before 9 days of the illness, 9 to 10 days of the illness. Somebody is coming to you with 12 days of the symptomatology, 13 days of the symptomatology, and somebody is forcing you to start the patient on remdesivir. Remdesivir is not going to work in this particular individual. 9 to 10 days of the illness when it is there, the important benefit that is going to be there. What is the benefit? It is going to reduce the hospital stay by 2 to 3 days in almost 20 to 30% of the patients, and it is going to help in preventing the complications, serious complications like say ARDS or say MODS that is going to happen. Again, the dose that needs to be the drug that is to be used, on day 1, 200 milligram is to be given in 100 ml of the normal saline, and over a period of 30 minutes to 1 hour or maximum 2 hours, that should be given this particular drug, 200 milligram. It is a 100 milligram vial that is available. So, the 2 vials those should be dissolved into the normal saline, 100 ml of the normal saline, and should be given over a period of 30 minutes to 1 hour. After completing the dose of this remdesivir, it should be flushed with 30 ml of the normal saline after completing the dose of the remdesivir. So, a specific instruction has to be given to the nurse giving this particular drug or a doctor giving this particular drug. This is on day 1, and what next? On day 2, day 3, day 4 and day 5, maximum 5 days this drug is to be given, 4 days, the basic 200 milligram first day and rest 100 milligram every day has to be given once a day for next 4 days, and that suffices. One should not be exceeding beyond 5 days. One should not be exceeding beyond 5 days. Again, I do not know, few of the physicians, they are giving this particular drug for over a period of, we have seen cases coming, they have received drug for 6 days also, they have received drug for 7 days also, right, intermittently also, after 2 days of the gap they are giving 3rd dose and 4th dose like this. The thing really should not be happening. I told you specific indication in this particular in this particular disease. There is an indication, there is some place of this particular drug when the RT-PCR or rapid antigen test is negative. Negative test. Negative test means we start thinking that it is not COVID, but it is not like that. 30% of the cases they can be having this negative test. But if the clinical picture, if the radiological picture, the HRCT picture is compatible with the diagnosis of interstitial pneumonitis, COVID pneumonitis that is there, even though the RT-PCR test is negative, we can definitely, but again it should be a moderate illness, and those patients who are requiring, this is must, moderate illness with oxygen requirement when it is there, again one should attempt to use this particular drug. And how can we find out whether it is equivalent to the rapid antigen test positive? HRCT is going to give this particular clue of CORADS, CORAD when 5 or CORAD 6 when it is there, it is as good as RT-PCR positive or antigen positive that is there. If at all somebody wants to give this particular drug beyond 10 days of the infection, can we give it? In certain cases, certain exceptional cases, we can give it if there is a persistent fever 100 degree Fahrenheit, persistent tachycardia is there, or reappearance of the fever that is there, worsening cytokine markers those are there, raised CPK-MB is there, and 6-minute walk test induced deoxygenation by 3% when it is there, definitely we can, but it should not be given, 15 days are over, 20 days, cases are coming after 18 days of the hospitalization somewhere else, and they are, then we are thinking of the remdesivir, it is of no use in this particular individuals. I like to highlight this slide, remdesivir should not be given in asymptomatic patient without comorbidities, in asymptomatic patient even though the comorbidities are there, in mild illness cases without comorbidities, in a mild illness cases when the comorbidities are there, unless comorbidities are there, but the diabetes that is uncontrolled or the patient is in ketosis, persistent fever that is there, more than 100 degree Fahrenheit beyond 3 days, obstructive sleep apnea manifestations are there, resting tachycardia. So, in this particular individuals beyond 10 days if you want to consider, we can consider, but then proportion of these cases should be very less, hardly 1 or 2% of the cases will be like this, requiring this particular drug beyond 10 days of the illness. This drug should not be given when the patient's liver enzymes are more than 5 times the upper limit of normal. This drug should not be given when there is severe renal impairment, that means eGFR is less than 30 ml per minute per square meter, or the patient those who are on hemodialysis. eGFR of more than 30, we can very well give this particular drug, and the dosage requirement or dosage adjustment is not required. We can give a normal dose that is 200 milligram day 1, 100 milligram every day, for next 4 days. This drug should not be given in pregnancy and lactating females, but again a word of caution that I would like to. If the patient's life is in danger, that means mother's life is in danger, and if you think that it is a moderate illness disease and the mother is requiring oxygen, and if you think that the remdesivir really is going to save the life of the patient, pregnant mother's life is going to get saved in a patient who has a moderate illness, we can definitely try. I have tried this particular drug in a pregnant ladies also, and I have found very good results. I could save the mother's life by giving this particular drug, even though the recommendation, official recommendation is not there of this particular drug. One thing that should be taken care of, when you are giving this particular drug to a pregnant lady, the consent is must. Obtaining the consent is must in there from the patient and patient relatives. The consent is must. What are the common side effects? The common side effects of these drugs are, there can be increase in the AGPT, AGOT, infusion reaction can be there, sometimes the nausea, shivering, vomiting, that can be there. But mind well, if injudicious use of this drug is there, then this can create a problem. We have seen a cases landing into acute renal failure also, acute kidney injury also. And once the acute kidney injury sets in on the background of remdesivir given in this particular patient, then it is very difficult to clear off the whatever acute injury that is there. So one should again be very cautious. As selected cases, this remdesivir is to be given. Again, important drug that can be tried in a COVID-19 infection is the steroids. Steroids are going to reduce the inflammation, no doubt. What are the different steroids those can be used? Dexamethasone, hydrocortisone, prednisolone, methylprednisolone. But again, word of caution. Injudicious use of these steroids should not be there. We have seen the cases because of long-term use, wrong dosages, plenty of the dosages, very big dosages, when they are given in this particular injury, the patients are landing into complications like, say, bacterial infection, mucormycosis. You must have been hearing about this particular mucormycosis, very short ultra pandemic that is going to be there of this mucormycosis. And one of the thing that is blamed for mucormycosis to develop is injudicious use of the steroids. I would like to just give a principle of the treatment. Maximum, once you have decided, it should not be in mild illness. When the patient is having mild illness, asymptomatic illness, steroid should not be used. The drug should not be used before 5 days of the illness, because we know that the cytokine storm or hyperinflammation that is going to be there after 5 days of the illness. So it should be tried after 5 days of the illness, and there has to be some evidence that okay, the hyperinflammation is there, and the hyperinflammation that can be identified with the help of inflammatory markers. If you attempt to give this particular drug, give it after 5 days of the illness, maximum for 3 to 5 days. When you want to give beyond 5 days, think twice. In fact, I will suggest you think 10 times when you want to give these steroids beyond 5 days of the illness. So the optimum duration should be 3 to 5 days, not in asymptomatic patients. And how much is the dose? As far as the Dexona is concerned, 6 milligram is the dose every day. Can be a period of 5 days, can be extended up to 10 days maximum. Methylprednisolone, injudicious use happening here and there, and that is why many cases of the mucormycosis are occurring. This methylprednisolone maximum 40 milligram twice a day, based on the hyperinflammatory markers, those are there. 40 milligram twice a day for 3 days to 5 days. In fact, I will curtail further, 40 milligram once a day, that should be given for 3 to 5 days. We have tried even 250 milligram, even 125 milligram, but that was long back, not recently, for last 2 to 3 months. We are not trying this particular drug with this particular dosages, because again the chances of fungal infections like say mucormycosis is going to happen in this particular patient. This is as far as the steroids are concerned. What about the anticoagulation? We know that the thrombosis here and there is happening. The anticoagulation like say enoxaparin, it is a preferred anticoagulant that can be used, but again a word of caution. How long? Again for 3 to 5 days. How much is the dose? 40 milligrams of drug. Two types of therapies those are available. One is the prophylactic therapy of the enoxaparin or low molecular weight heparin, and therapeutic therapy of the enoxaparin or low molecular weight heparin, in whom the the prophylactic doses are to be given. Prophylactic doses are only 40 milligrams subcutaneously once a day, and this is to be practiced in a patient who has mild disease, moderate disease, and those who are having some comorbidities. In them, this prophylactic dose is to be used. Therapeutic dose in the form of 40 milligram BD or even 60 milligram BD, that can be tried specifically in a patient who has severe illness, moderate illness that is there requiring oxygenation, severe illness that is there, MODS that is there, or if you find that the hypercoagulable markers those are there, or thrombotic markers those are there, like say D-dimer is very high in these particular individuals, right. In that case, again 3 to 5 days therapy of BD doses that can be tried, 40 milligram or say 60 milligram. Again, if you want to give beyond 5 days, one should again start thinking twice, thrice, 4 times. Think it, and then decide whether to continue or not to continue. It all depends on how much is the thrombotic complication that is going on. Is it going on in the pulmonary vessel? Is it going on in the glomeruli? Is it going on in the cerebral vessel? Based on those particular and D-dimer levels, those are there. Again, these anticoagulants are to be given. One word of caution, these particular patients of COVID-19, they might be having less platelet count because of the disease itself, and hence when the platelet count is less than 20,000, it becomes the absolute contraindication of giving this, either enoxaparin, low molecular weight heparin, or say conventional heparin. It is absolute contraindication. So moderate illness, severe illness, ARDS patient, they require these therapeutic doses. So important drug therapies that we have seen so far are the oxygen therapy. Second one therapy that we have seen for the antiviral like remdesivir, favipiravir. Third one that we found out, we gone into the details of say like anticoagulant and the steroids. Next important therapy is antibiotics, then the antifungals, the antibiotics that we are supposed to use are augmentin. Empirical therapy that can be started in this particular individuals even though they are having mild illness, moderate and severe illness. But then which one? When the patient is having mild illness. In fact, I will suggest you in mild illness the antibiotics are not required. They are required in the mild illness those who are having comorbidities. Moderate illness patient they require antibiotics. Severe illness patient they are requiring antibiotics. What is the role of antibiotics? The role of antibiotics is to prevent the bacterial infections to happen. It is a viral infection. Why should we give for the viral infection? It is to avoid the bacterial infection, and once already the bacterial infection is there, obviously we are supposed to use antibiotics. I suggest you moderate illness those who are not requiring simple antibiotic like say augmentin, that can be tried. Not like say piptaz, higher antibiotic like say piptaz, meropenem. Piptaz and meropenem empirically when you want to start in a patient who are having serious illness or critical illness that is there. So piptaz and meropenem or say vancomycin sometimes. But again the principle that has to be start the therapy as early as possible. Give up appropriate drug. Appropriate drug means decide it after the culture and sensitivity. No doubt empirical therapy is going on, but at least on day 2, day 3, day 4, at least the blood culture report, the sputum culture reports when they are available, urine culture appropriately, then we are supposed to switch over to a particular sensitivity based on the sensitivity pattern, we are supposed to switch over to this particular drug. No doubt the de-escalation has to be practiced all the time. The way the early initiation of the antibiotic is important, early de-escalation is also very important. Appropriate drug, appropriate antibiotic based on the culture sensitivity pattern is also very important. I won't be going into the details again of all these things, just the principles that I highlighted so far. Another complications, the antifungal drugs. What is the drug? That is of choice in a patient with mucormycosis. We are finding these cases. The amphotericin is the drug of choice. The posaconazole along with the amphotericin is the drug of choice in these particular patients. Horiconazole in some other viral infections that or fungal infection that not viral, the fungal infection that is there, could be aspergillus, could be a mucormycosis. This horiconazole and posaconazole that can be tried. I think I needless to go into the details of all these particular things based on the hospital practices, based on the whatever clinical picture that is there, whether it is mucor, whether it is aspergillus, that is identified in the sputum, that is identified in the blood and so on and so forth. Based on this particular amphotericin or horiconazole or posaconazole that could be tried. Another important modality of the treatment that is there is the tocilizumab. This tocilizumab has been tried in ample quantity before 6 months. 6 months back we tried this particular thing, but again with the research it has been found that this drug again has got a very limited role. Patient selection is very, very important. The patients who are having very high cytokine markers, the patients who are not responding to the steroids, the patients who are requiring oxygenation, tocilizumab, that can be tried in these particular individuals, but really the SpO2 should be really less than 93% in this individual. And once it is decided that the tocilizumab is to be given, what I will suggest you, not 2 doses, not 3 doses, which we have seen the patients are coming receiving 2 to 3 doses of the tocilizumab, which should not be the practice. It should be only a single dose that should be practiced in these particular individuals. And what is the single dose? The 400 milligram of the tocilizumab that is to be dissolved in 100 ml of the normal saline. It should be given over a period of 60 minutes. Before that, one can give say paracetamol, one should give antihistamine just to avoid the injection reaction to happen in this particular. So that should be the 400 milligram. But I tell you what is the current state, current place of this particular drug in a very limited number of cases. I tell you, I have used this particular tocilizumab in last 2 months only in 3 patients. In last 2 months only in 3 patients. Out of these 2 patients did very well, they have come out, 1 patient died because of some other complication. And this is complication producing drug, a lot of complication those can happen. And what is the complication that can happen is secondary bacterial infections, very common. The patient could die because of the secondary bacterial infection, right? That should not happen. Let the patient, if the patient is really serious, all 6 zone disease or say 22 by 25 disease, it is going to be a serious disease. Whatever we are going to try may not be, may not be useful, may not be acceptable by the patient or may not be acceptable by the body. So the patient may die because of the per se, because of the illness itself, but it should not happen like this. That the patient, we are giving tocilizumab, the patient is developing secondary infection and the patient is dying because of the secondary infection of the tocilizumab. That is why a selection of the patient is very, very important. This tocilizumab is contraindicated when the patient's age is less than 18 and more than 90 years of age. The patients who are having active infections, and that is why we are supposed to rule out first whether other bacterial infection that is there. It could be HIV infection, it could be HBsAg infection, it could be a staphylococcal infection, it could be some other fungal infection. If it is already existent, there is no place of this particular tocilizumab in this particular patient. If the patient is having tuberculosis, some other bacterial infection that is there, when the ALT, AST ratio, liver enzymes are more than 5 times, again this tocilizumab is not to be used. When the absolute neutrophilic count is less than 1000, the platelet count is less than 50,000, all these things are to be observed whenever you are deciding for the patient to give tocilizumab. Again, I would like to highlight in a limited number of cases, in a properly selected cases, when the specific parameters those are there, then and then this particular tocilizumab is to be used. The cousin brother of this particular tocilizumab is the itolizumab, which is anti-CD6 monoclonal antibody. Same basic principles are to be applied when you want to give this itolizumab that we are practicing when the patients are considered for the tocilizumab. I do not go into the details because not very much of use in a very selected cases. Again, I told you in the beginning only, the convalescent plasma, hardly any role that is there of the convalescent plasma nowadays. Again, very, very selected cases, very selected patient, too early cytokine markers. It has been observed that with the cytokine plasma there can be increase in the thrombotic state. So there is no point in giving this convalescent plasma, very limited role that is there again. So these are the drugs, those are to be used in the treatment of the COVID-19 disease. Again, I tell you the most important thing is the treatment of the underlying disease. One should take care of the diabetes mellitus, one should take care of the hypertension, one should take care of the hypothyroidism, IHD that is there, CKD that is there, the patient may require the dialysis also because of the CKD, frequent regular dialysis going on and the COVID-19 disease is happening, it is developing. We should take care of the CKD also. I like to little bit go into the details of the diabetes mellitus. What is the important drug that can be tried is the insulin, no, right? If the patient already is on oral hypoglycemic agents, anti-diabetic drugs and is developing COVID-19 disease, oral anti-diabetic drugs need to be continued. Glitazones, when the patient is on, the glitazone should be stopped because we are supposed to give some other drugs like say remdesivir and so and so. So repaglinide should also be stopped in this particular individual. The glitazones have to be stopped. The best drug for the treatment of the diabetes mellitus when it is happening for the first time also detected for this time is the insulin in this particular, and monitoring with the insulin is going to be really helpful. One should see that once the patient is detected to have diabetes mellitus or hyperglycemia, one should always go ahead with the urine ketone levels in this particular patient. Let the sugar be 256. We are finding that these patients are having diabetic ketoacidosis, and then in that case the drug of choice definitely is going to be their insulin, and that too IV parenteral IV insulin that needs to be given in this particular individuals. As far as the hypertension is concerned, no doubt lot of queries were there as far as the ACE inhibitors and ARBs are concerned. If the patient already are taking these particular drugs, we can continue this particular drug. There should not be, one should not hesitate in continuing the ARBs or ACE inhibitors as far as the hypertension is concerned. Hypothyroidism, all these things are to be taken care of. Supportive care, I told you, fast hug speed, these are the things that should always be taken care of: the feeding, the fluids, the analgesia and so on and so forth, the glycemic control and so on and so forth. Little 2 or 3 lines about the fluid management. Avoid dehydration or overhydration in this particular patient, specifically when the patients are ARDS and those are on mechanical ventilator. Overhydration is deleterious. If at all you want to hydrate, if you want to give the IV fluids in this particular patients, the crystalloids in the form of normal saline, and that too judicious use. ARDS patient, ventilated patient, CVP line, normal saline based on the CVP levels, then also that should always be practiced in this particular patient. So, a conservative line of approach has to be there in patients with ARDS. Mild dehydration, when it is there, can be taken care of the oral rehydration solution. When the patients are not able to take orally, then obviously the normal saline that can be practiced, that can be given 25 ml per kg per day, that can be given as a normal saline. When the patient is in shock, CVP insertion, monitoring and judicious use of IV fluids again is required. As far as the diet is concerned, I told you it is a hypercatabolic state. The energy requirement is going to be 30 kilocalorie per kilogram of the body weight, and accordingly the proteins are to be proteins, carbohydrates and the lipids should be there. I think it becomes a theoretical type of thing as far as the diet is concerned. I won't be going into the details of this part because it can be another separate topic of discussion as far as the diet in this particular individuals are concerned. But yes, mind well, what we have observed, protein levels day by day goes on decreasing in this particular patient because of the hypercatabolic state that is going to be there. Hence, the protein supplementation should be monitored, and how much is to be given is to be decided as that particular period of time. So, proteins are 1 gram per kilogram per day are to be given. So, in short, whenever it is a mild illness that is there, mild illness asymptomatic, monitoring of the patient that is required, and only vitamin C and zinc and vitamin D, that is all. No antiviral, asymptomatic individual, virus is there, nothing much is required. But what is required is monitoring. Just have to see whether the patient is deteriorating or not. And the moment you try to catch the patient, the moment you find that the patient has deteriorated, appropriate strategy has to be then practiced. That is what the mild illness is. Mild illness asymptomatic. Mild illness without comorbidities, again only the symptomatic is. Symptoms those are there, only symptomatic treatment. Only symptomatic treatment. In fact, favipiravir can be tried in this, specifically in a patient in a type mild illness with C category, means the patient is having comorbidities. Favipiravir that should be given in this particular patient. I told you about the dose and all this. Comorbidities those are there, type C category that is there, comorbidities are there, yes. Prophylactic doses of low molecular weight heparin has to be given for 3 to 5 days. Antibiotic, simple antibiotic, augmentin is enough, need not go for the piptas and higher antibiotics. And obviously the supplementary therapy like zinc and vitamin C and vitamin D needs to be continued. So very simple practice has to be there as far as the mild illness is concerned in asymptomatic patient, mildly symptomatic without comorbidities and with comorbidity that is there. What about the moderate illness? I told you these are the candidates for remdesivir. These are the candidates for remdesivir, that too a moderate illness patients who are requiring oxygenation. And remdesivir I told you in detail, favipiravir, if the remdesivir is not available, favipiravir can also be tried. So it should be, one should not be always hunting for the remdesivir, not getting a search here and there, wasting our time, 2 days are gone, we are delaying our therapy. No, it should not be happening like that. Give favipiravir even in the moderate illness cases. These are the moderate illness cases, low molecular weight heparin should be practiced. subcutaneously OD. If the D-dimer levels are high, accordingly we are supposed to change the doses, can be given twice in a day. If the SpO2 is less than 90% oxygen therapy, CAR protocol definitely has to be followed. The MPS, methylprednisolone, because it is moderate illness, the day of illness is crossed beyond 5 days, so methylprednisolone definitely has its place, and depending on the inflammatory markers, those are there, right? If the inflammatory markers are more than 2 times normal, more than 3 times normal, based on that, again this MPS dose, again I tell you 3 to 5 days of the therapy is going to be enough in a properly selected patient with a moderate illness. Can we try to tocilizumab? Sometimes it may require, it may not require, again think multiple times when you want to give tocilizumab in this particular individuals. As far as the severe illness is concerned, severe illness components are different, the treatment of ARDS will be requiring, a protocol is going to be totally different, when to intubate, how long to, when to intubate, what is the ventilator strategy, what are the settings, those are to be. But here ARDS treatment is standard treatment protocol that has to be followed. What I will suggest you, standard treatment protocol ARDS, that should always be placed in front of the that is, you stick that particular protocol and follow that particular protocol. VCV, volume control ventilation, low tidal volume control ventilation, that is what is to be practiced. I think I will not be going into the details of this particular thing, because it is a specialized job, and can be given 1 more hour for the treatment of this particular thing. ARDS, septic shock, I told you septic shock when it is there, early starting the antibiotics within 1 hour of identifying the shock, then crystalloids, the normal saline, CVP monitoring, all these things, lactate, a lot of monitoring that is required. Again, it is a specialized job that is there. These patients, when they are in severe illness, they could be in acute renal failure or acute kidney injury. This patient, they may require dialysis. So based on what is the dysfunction, based on what is the organ that is getting affected, right, how many organs they are getting, the strategy is going to be decided. If the patient is having myocarditis with the left ventricular failure or congestive cardiac failure, we are supposed to give OD congestive pulmonary treatment, or proper doses of the say remdesivir, the proper doses of the MPAs, the proper doses of the say low molecular weight heparin, all these things, same basic principle, those should be tried. I think I need not go into the details, so I told you certain points already highlighted. Now, what about the chronic medication? Somebody is having already some treatment the patient is receiving, and the patient has now developed COVID-19 disease, could be mild, moderate, severe. Then what about the prior medication the patient is receiving? What is to be done for this particular individual? If the patient is receiving angiotensin converting enzymes or ARBs for the hypertension, continue, do not stop. We are supposed to continue these particular drugs. If the patients are receiving statins for some reason, for cardiac reason, for vascular reason, right, or for say some cerebral hypertension that is there, plaques, for some reason the statins the patient already is on, do not stop this, continue, you are supposed to continue. It has been said that the statins can give rise to increase in the LFTs and hepatic dysfunction that can be there. It is hardly any dysfunction that is going to be there in the statins, and that should not be a bar for discontinuing the statin therapy in this. What about the anti-diabetic drugs? The patient already is supposed receiving anti-diabetic drugs. Amongst the anti-diabetic drugs, the glitazone and AGLT2 inhibitors should be stopped, right? Rest of the drugs, those can be continued. Insulin has to be started in this particular individuals. There is no place of hydroxychloroquine. So just throw that particular drug, hydroxychloroquine, because hydroxychloroquine can give rise to so many times the hypoglycemia that is there. DPP-4 inhibitors and metformin definitely has some place in treating the diabetes in this particular individual, and they have a beneficial role. One important word of caution I would like to give here is COVID-19 hyperglycemia getting observed in so many patients. Hyperglycemia getting observed so often in this particular individual could be there because of the diabetes, could be there because of the drugs that we are using, like say steroids, methylprednisolone or decadron, that we are using. Hyperglycemia is deleterious. Any level, sugar level that is going beyond 180 milligram, right? We should take care of that thing. We should take care of that particular thing with the help of say insulin and not by the oral hypoglycemic drugs. Here, last slide about the discharge of the patient. When to discharge these particular patients. Asymptomatic patient, there is no need of even out of hospitalization. Asymptomatic individuals are there, what is required is the home quarantine. They can be monitored at home, they can be self-monitoring that can be given, right, with a proper intermittent consultation with the telephonic consultation with the doctor, online consultation with the doctor. Asymptomatic. Mild illness cases, monitoring those who are having comorbidities, type C category, they require hospitalization. How long? Discharging criteria that should be there is, if the patient is asymptomatic for 3 days, if the patient is not having fever for 3 days, if the patient's SpO2 is maintained for continuously for 3 days, all these 3 parameters, those are there, you can very well discharge that particular patient. Even on day 5, day 6 or day 7 of admission, do not hesitate in discharging these particular patients, right. As far as the serious illness is concerned, these patients, if they are dischargeable with this particular criteria, we can discharge, but then most of these patients, they require further hospitalization, further oxygenation is required, they may require oxygenation for 10 days, 14 days, 15 days and so on and so forth. In that case, or they may require further hospitalization for some other element, like say the patient is having renal failure, the patient is having myocarditis, this patient will be requiring hospitalization, and in that case shifting the patient from COVID positive side to COVID negative side, COVID positive to COVID negative. After 10 days of the RT-PCR report or antigen report that is there, we are supposed to repeat the antigen, we are supposed to repeat the or RT-PCR in these particular individuals, and when it is turning out to be negative, then we can think of deciding the patient to be shifted from positive COVID side to a negative COVID building or wherever the place that is there for these negative patients. So, this is the simple strategy that can be followed in this particular patient as far as the discharge is concerned. This is, I think, much more than enough for you to get highlighted having a review of this COVID-19 disease as far as information and management is concerned. Thank you so much for your patient listening.